So in this little video, I want to talk about how politicians' rhetoric shapes reality, and sometimes it enhances what's going on and sometimes it inhibits it. So David Cameron was just meeting with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, and it appears to have been a failure. I'm going to go through this article and we'll explain and unpack why. So Cameron's Mar-a-Lago lobbying may not be enough to reach the new Republican Party, and there's multiple reasons for that, but one of these is an unforced error. The UK Foreign Secretary's trip to Mar-a-Lago failed to bring support for Ukraine. Dinner at Trump's Florida residence was always going to be a stiff test of UK Foreign Secretary's influence over the former presidential candidate, and the man he had previously referred to variously as protectionist, xenophobic, and misogynistic. Okay, let's say that Trump is all of those things. Articulating that would cause someone like Cameron to lose influence with Trump because now Trump has been personally attacked. So the lesson here is, like, even if you disagree with your adversary, you can disagree with them and point to the policy concerns or point to the facts of the matter without being disagreeable. The Proverbs talks about how an undeserved curse does not come to rest. Don't set yourself up for a place where somebody's not going to want to deal with you in the future because you are unnecessarily antagonistic, and that's what Cameron may have done. When Cameron was planning this week's trip to Washington, the British Embassy had advised him that if he wanted to help unlock U.S. aid to Ukraine, his primary mission, it would be worth meeting the man who's orchestrating the persistent Republican bloc on that assistance, and that's Trump. Because it's not really Johnson that's the impediment. If Trump was like, you know what, let's do this thing, let's get this thing forward, for whatever reason, if Trump was greenlighting it, it seems like Johnson would be much more likely to. A Trump spokesperson later listed the topics of conversation as including U.S. and U.K. elections, Brexit-related policies, the need for NATO to meet their defense spending goals, and that's big for Trump. In fact, he could have gone out and said, you know what, I was hard on NATO in order to meet their obligations. They've now met their obligations, and because of that, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and we can. He could have gone down that path. But remember, it was Donald Trump who was saying this not too long ago. Trump says he would encourage Russia to do whatever the heck they want to any NATO country that doesn't pay enough. So they could have gone that way, and Cameron could have unlocked that. But I think beyond where Trump is, where his mindset already is, Cameron was destined to be ineffective because of previous insults, and maybe he couldn't have done it, but that certainly didn't help. Despite being pressed repeatedly by journalists on Tuesday, Cameron would not even be that specific, insisting that it was a private meeting and that the two men had talked about geopolitical issues. Well, of course they did. I mean, it's the foreign minister from the UK who was a prime minister who knew Trump already, and okay. What it did not produce is a meeting with Mike Johnson, and that was his endgame, and I don't think it was ever destined to get there. British officials insisted that absence of a Johnson meeting was because their, quote, two timetables could not be aligned, unquote, but Cameron told reporters on Tuesday that he would make time to meet anyone or any people in Congress who would welcome a conversation about Ukraine aid. The misalignment clearly came from just one side. So there's an ideological opposition to Ukraine from the Trump camp, and then I guess that personal animosity might not have helped it. Cameron stressed on Tuesday that he would bring every argumentative tool at his disposal to his talks with other Republican and Democratic leaders in Congress, from hard-headed national interest. Now this is good. Hard-headed national interest. It's a cheap way to degrade the Russian war machine. It creates U.S. jobs, to the thick seam of sentiment that runs through the history of the U.S.-UK relationship. And folks like me, Reagan Republicans, are going to buy both of these. But that's not who he's talking to. He's talking to MAGA Republicans who just don't seem to see it this way. We face a huge threat from aggressive Putin taking another country's territory by force, and it's so important that we stick together, Cameron would tell him, but that's not going to resonate. Those sentiments will work with the Republicans Cameron was due to meet, including Mitch McConnell, Steve Scalise, Senate Minority Leader, and House Majority Leader, who are toward the Atlanticist end of the party. They're well aware that they need to be involved in the world, because the reason that we have the global free trade that we have is because there's somebody making sure that it Nobody else is gumming up the works like Putin is doing in Ukraine, Xi could do it with China and Taiwan, and the Houthi are doing in the Middle East. Now, Johnson, on his side, is worried. The threat to the speaker's job is coming from that part of the Republican Party that has no sentimental or ideological attachments to old alliances, no time for talk of special relationships, only loyalty to Trump. Marjorie Taylor Greene has threatened to lead a revolt against Johnson and potentially topple him if he sends Ukrainian funding to the House floor for a vote. The Georgia Congresswoman stepped up her attacks on the Speaker on Tuesday morning with a 5-page screed to her Republican colleagues accusing him of failing to live up to any of his promises to his own party and serving the Democrats' agenda. I thought that she was pulling the trigger. That wasn't what it was. It was just a tirade. Greene responded to an earlier Cameron lobbying effort on Ukraine's behalf in February with an invitation to the foreign secretary to kiss her rear end. And so, yeah, this is her saying that, and here it's gotten carried. The last time David Cameron, Britain's foreign secretary, urged Capitol Hill to pass Ukraine aid, he was told to kiss my rear end, said Marjorie Taylor Greene. Okay, so my basic thrust is, it's already an uphill battle ideologically, but he made it more difficult for himself by his comments about Trump beforehand. I'm not sure that Trump really resonates with the guy. Trump seems to get along a little bit better with Boris Johnson, who's out of power, but they seem to be on a similar page. Okay. Dale Carnegie talked about how you can't win an argument. You can't, because if you lose it, you lose. And if you win it, you lose. And so it's the same kind of thing. Like if you're going to be, just so you can call out whoever you want. You can be as mean as you want. You can whatever. Yeah, I'm going to tell. And reserve that for people that really deserve it. Russians who are doing bad things in Ukraine. Putin who's causing that to happen. But when you're doing this unnecessarily, you lose credibility, you lose your ability to influence the other person. Stephen Covey talked about how you can't influence me if you can't be influenced by me. And to do this destroys your ability to influence the other person. And if we've learned anything at all from SpongeBob SquarePants, it's don't be a jerk, it's Christmas. Okay, now Peyton Manning is a football player in the United States. He's now retired. This is American football, not the soccer football. And he said something, I own a Peyton Manning jersey. Now, I should own an Eli Manning jersey because his brother played on the team that I root for, but I own his jersey. Why? Because he's just a great guy. He's just a kind human being. In one of my classes, I show a slide of a quote of his where he says, it takes 5 seconds to be mean. It takes 5 seconds to be nice. Just be nice. You can do it. And then last thing I want to show you is this. This is a slide from my class. Powell, Colin Powell, he's asked often about who the best president to work with was and who the worst president to work with was. He says, I don't answer these questions. And remember, Powell was the nation's chief diplomat. What does it gain him to answer that question, to create unnecessary animosity where it didn't have to be? Nothing. But he was largely trusted as a diplomat because he was diplomatic. And I would urge you to do the same thing. And this is one of the problems that complicated David Cameron's impact on Donald Trump. It might not have been the whole thing. He might not have actually gotten it, but it made it less likely that he was going to get it. If you're interested in Powell's book, It Worked for Me, where I got this quote from, it's $2.79 on Kindle right now. It's like on sale as at this moment. So I'll put the link below. Thank you for listening to my arguments that you reserve the worst kind of language for the people that are the worst, and everybody else, try to be nice. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, the thoughts that you're going to place below, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.